All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Thursday, March 18th, 2021. This is a meeting, an informal meeting of the subcommittee of the Planning Board's Design Review Committee. This is an informal meeting. There will be no voting and no decisions made. The public is invited to attend and watch, but there will be no public participation this afternoon. So I just wanted to let everyone know that you're welcome to sit in and watch what happens, but there will be no public participation. So thank you everyone for joining us. And Jen, I'm going to hand it over to you, Ms. Smith, to get started.
Mm-hmm. Well, good afternoon, everyone. We are here following our last meeting where we were formally before the Planning Board in January, and this concerns the proposed beach club property. At the last Planning Board meeting, it was suggested during the comment period by members of the board that the applicant should go back and take a hard look at the proposed fence that is proposed for the rear portion behind the building, between the building, or I should say on the outside of the building, so that the pool is between the building and the fence. We have done that, and we have come up with two different design concepts that we think incorporate some of the features that you asked us to take a look at. So, for example, there's greater variation of plane, where the fence kind of goes in and out to create more visual variation, which also creates more space for plantings. There's increased spacing between the boards themselves in certain areas to allow for more light and air. And there's also spaces that could be used for murals, and we'll show what it would look like both with the murals and without the murals, so you can see both ways. And there are actually two different design schematics that we could show you as part of your package, just so you can see different ideas of what happens if you make longer runs versus shorter runs of the planting area. All of this was with the goal that we heard from you to create some more visual interest along the fence line. So we have with us Rick Kearns. Rick is with Handel Architecture. You have previously heard from Gary Handel, and Rick and Gary work together. Rick has prepared some fence schematics for your review, and I thought we would start by just having him describe what's been submitted, so you can get a sense of what we're proposing that would be changing. We do have Keenan Hughes, our planner, with us as well, more just to support the testimony, and I should say support the presentation. It's not testimony this evening, but support the presentation if there's any questions. So unless anyone has questions to start, I'd ask Rick to pull up the package that we previously submitted to the committee.
Okay. Everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me just go to presentation mode. Oh, it always does that to me. Let me maximize the screen real quick. So this is what was last presented to the planning board, and what this shows here is the fence is about 200 feet that's fronting onto the boardwalk, and then there's a recesses at both ends. This was broken down into 8 individual recess pockets. Those pockets were approximately 14 inches in depth and 8 feet long. So that was providing you almost exactly 64 feet of sort of planting zones in total. The fence was 7'6" in height. The fence was composed of 1x6 boards. One board ran parallel to the framing, and then the next board ran perpendicular, and so that was giving you sort of those vertical shadow lines that you're seeing in this pattern there. And then from that, what we did was take a look at what if we turned the boards horizontal, and if we increase the planting depths and sort of create this, instead of doing 8 smaller ones, this one was showing 2 larger ones. And so what this is, the same 200 feet, we have a 40-foot planting zone here and another 40-foot planting zone there with equal space. They're approximately 35 feet each of the solid zones. And so these boards are running horizontal. We'll show the detail of how we've sort of opened up at the sort of recessed pockets, how we've opened those boards up so you have a little bit more light and air between the inside of the pool area to the outside on the pool and on the boardwalk. But we have some details we can show in a couple minutes. The next slide is showing if we took those solid zones and just put murals, these are just sort of just placeholders, not necessarily showing any specific murals that we would be interested in, but more just sort of placeholders taken from some other projects that were in the Asbury Park area. And then this is the plan showing that. So this is the 40-foot, these are the two 40-foot recesses, and then there's the solids actually 40, and the last one's 45, because it's a total of 205 feet. And then these are those two end recesses that come back, and those are about 6 foot in depth that take you, those are the returns. So the goal was, this was sort of this element that we were treating. And so this would be, the murals would be on the outboard elements, and then the recesses would be the planting zones. The next one was looking at it if it was broken into 3 zones, and those 3 zones were approximately 24 feet in length. So that's a total of 72 feet of sort of planting zones. And then what the remainders were broken into 4 equal sort of solid zones. And then this shows you similar what you would get if those were broken into, if those had murals on them. And then the plan here is sort of showing you have 36, then 24, 32, 24, 32, 24, 32 with those. And so those were 3 24-foot long planting zones. So a little more breaking up than the first one, which was 2 larger ones. The next is sort of showing you the details on what we were proposing. And so for the first roughly 4 feet, the board spacings are tight, mainly because this fence is also a pool enclosure. And so by code, you can't have gaps in the fence because they become footholds for children to climb up and over, and this becomes a fence. And so the first 4 feet need to be roughly fairly tight joints. And then as we move up from there, we're gradating, opening those up to almost around 2 inches around the top. And so we're just basically taking those same boards, and then we're creating bigger gaps at the top, and then they sort of taper down into sort of just the tight zones, but the planted grass would be covering those at those areas. And this is showing what it would look like if it was a mural. And then the next slide, what we were looking at doing is if there is no mural and a sort of a solid fence is preferred, what we wanted to do is take that idea that we had with the vertical, where we had an alternating sort of flat and then a perpendicular board, was to create sort of these little reveal lines, but they're proud. So, and they're about 1 inch. We won't want to go much further than that, because then they become places for birds to sit on and ice and snow to build up on. So they're approximately like in 1 inch projections to sort of create those same sort of shadow lines, but in a horizontal manner. And we would work those and sort of tie those into the gaps of the fence that you would see on the back. And that's it.
Would that create, if you did the little 1 inch projections, could that be used as people like climbing over that?
No, because it doesn't project out enough that it would be considered a fence. So
I like this horizontal treatment. I think that's really nice. It kind of gives some. You can now get some play between what's going on in there and the outside on the boardwalk. It's much more visually interesting, I think.
What would be, so if the murals were to be applied, it wouldn't be directly on the wood, right? Would there be some kind of like primer or something?
Yeah, we would probably put some type of coating just to sort of give them a little bit smoother surface. So you won't read all of the individual boards.
Got it.
In there.
I mean, I personally really like the texture of the wood. I agree with the horizontality being an improvement. I think it breaks it up. I like the texture, the way that you've texturized it, even without the murals. Although I don't feel strongly about the murals one way or other, but I think that it's fine without it because it's broken up. I don't know if you guys have a preference for the 2 planners or 3. I think the 3 actually is a little bit more effective in making it not look as
kind of breaks it up more.
monotonous. Yeah.
Yeah. I agree.
But yeah, those are just my initial thoughts.
Is there maybe a possibility for the the parts that are abutting directly to the boardwalk, a combination of mural and then some of the kind of articulated horizontal parts, so it's not one or the other, but maybe both? Maybe the end pieces. Sorry about that. The end pieces, the end sections, maybe have the play of movement, and then the center pieces maybe have murals or something like that. So it's a combination of the two, and not just one or the other.
Mm-hmm. I think that's definitely possible.
If I could ask just a few questions. So in this rendering, you're showing light posts. Are those? Can you just talk about that? And like, what's the lighting scheme that?
These light posts, I believe, are already part of what's currently there.
I think they're existing.
Yeah, they are.
Along with some new benches.
Yes.
You have the old benches there.
Oh.
So I guess for what I guess I'm getting at is, has there been a kind of general approach to the exterior lighting to create, because what you're going to get is pooling, right? So you're going to have these lampposts pooling across. So that's my first question. And then my second question is, if you were to apply murals, could the top line of the fence maybe not be all one length all the way across? Like maybe parts of the murals project up, so like it's not all one height all the way across. I think you've done exactly what we asked for, which is to create some variation and difference and texture. And I'm just wondering if there could even be like a foot of variation in height along the length. Does that make sense?
Yes. I don't see, I think this is more about looking structurally, just confirming if we extend them up higher, if there's an issue to that.
Extend your post by a foot,
yeah.
And then you could attach anything to that.
Right.
And what I'm saying is, I don't want you to necessarily limit your future artists to a rectangle.
Yep.
And so I think creating some undulation, for lack of a better word, along that top plane might also be like another element that breaks up the mass.
I've also seen in other places where they've done applied art to a type of barrier, so that you get the movement on the top of it, but it's actually something that's been affixed to it. It's not part of the fence, but it's some kind of sculpture-like application that's been put on it.
Right. And I think we all recognize that at the Sunset Avenue Pavilion, that's really become like the Instagrammable moment around town. And so I think carrying that same spirit about wanting people to feel like this is a place to see and visit and have their picture taken creates some excitement out of something that is fundamentally private. And then I think more broadly, we should talk about what the seating strategy along this wall is. But I'm not sure that's really a question for the applicant, because it's
I don't think it is. I think that's a city.
Yeah, this is more of a discussion for us.
Right.
And I also think that we could probably try and coordinate the lighting strategy a little more.
I was going to say that.
I'm sorry if I may on the.
Okay.
Sorry, on the lighting, just the lighting is actually on the boardwalk. It's shown here, just because you'll see it, but it was part of the boardwalk rebuilding, and it's on the city's property and exists. So whatever is there at this point wouldn't change.
I think maybe what Eric is maybe getting at is what kind of interplay occurs because of the existing lighting and how the fence is articulated, what that looks like.
The lighting to me feels plopped in place and not coordinated to the architecture. That's not your fault or responsibility. And I think the city should look at how we take a more comprehensive approach to the lighting infrastructure, the seating infrastructure, the boardwalk, and the facade.
Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. So my point was going to be, you're right. I think the lighting, the way, unfortunately, it lines up is that you got a lamppost in front of every space where there could be a mural. So I don't even know if it's possible in the design of the fence. Can you swap the two? Like have the indented sections behind the light posts and the outdented sections not
Like have
behind
it
the light?
correspond in some way.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah, you
I
can
don't know if
shift everything to the left 12 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sure, we can look at that.
Yeah, I think that might be that's a really great suggestion, Mike.
So it kind of
And then-
repeats the rhythm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then earlier, Alexis, did you say you preferred the 3 banks of plants or the 2?
I do prefer the 3, but not strongly enough that I would not be open to other opinions. I'm just following the rule of 3 and that you break it up a little bit more and then they're less kind of straight edges.
I agree with you. And I think, talking about seating strategy, you probably would put the benches in front of the planted areas, right? Because then people would want to interact with the artwork.
Yeah.
And then I also agree on a point someone made that maybe the corners are not murals.
I thought it was that the corners would be murals and the center.
Oh, okay.
But again, it was Rick's point, I believe. It's kind of cool the optics of it going around the corner.
Yeah,
Not just being
that's true.
flat, but every one of those flat panels also, because they project out, also has a corner, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Now I have a Michael question.
Okay.
Who fabricated the new benches?
That was a decision by the city and iStar.
Well done.
Okay, good.
No,
I didn't know where you were going there.
No, well, I'm gonna steal it for one of my projects. I wanted to know. I wanted to actually know who fabricated.
I like them. I think they're cool.
I think they're great. I think they're a modern look. I love a good old park bench though, so I was fine with the old ones, but I think they're a really nice job.
Full disclosure, some people have said they're not as comfortable, but I think they're fine. But anyway.
Comfort isn't the primary goal of a bench.
True.
I believe the manufacturer's forms and surfaces.
Yeah.
So this is Rick. I just want to kind of revisit. So the walls that have no mural on them are articulated similar to how the vertical were, but in a horizontal fashion where there's a projection and a recess of a rhythm kind of going down the fence of projecting like an inch and then recessed an inch.
Yep.
And then where the mural is, it's just flat.
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, I don't know how everyone else feels, but if what I had mentioned was a coordination of maybe having both of those, not necessarily going around the corner, but like the end, some pieces or some sections were articulated, others were flat to allow for mural. I don't know what your feeling is about that. Just trying to create a variety of experiences along that wall.
Right. I understand. And I think if we end up mixing it, I really think you would want the wood to sort of be at the two ends. It sort of seems strange to me that the murals sort of frame it and then there's this wood in the middle.
Yeah, I agree. I think the
I believe the wood would be at the ends and then those sort of bookend it. And then you have these sort of two murals. And I agree that maybe we have to look at that structurally just with wind loads and everything on the fence, that if they could be a little higher, that they do stand up and have a little bit more presence. And then potentially shifting them so that these two light poles aren't directly in the center of them. You can definitely look at that.
And I really like how you articulated the recess part with the solid at the bottom and then slowly expanding between the slats horizontally. I think that's really interesting.
I think it's going to be nice on both sides. I know.
I do too.
I too.
I think just the light coming in a little bit more brief. I think it's going to be nice on both sides.
And you get a glimpse of activity on both sides, so you see that there's going on. You know that there's actually human.
You can see but can't touch. It's great.
Right. I think that's really interesting. And then you get the movement of the plants in there too. I mean, it's a really nice effects that's going to occur. Good job. Thank you all for doing this. It's very much appreciated.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah, I like the direction too.
Now, we are not commenting on any other parts of the design, but I did just want to remark in this particular thing. So the horizontal kind of plane of the fence, does it mess up the vertical slats of then the wood piece behind it? I guess it doesn't.
I think, you mean as they wrap the corners?
No, I meant like
Oh.
of the actual second story, but we're not commenting on, nothing's changing about that. I'm
Yeah,
just
yeah,
saying, like,
correct.
Oh,
I like the contrast. I think it's
Also,
I think it's fine.
If we're all vertical, if we're all horizontal.
Also on the northern end, the northern side of the development, it's a much longer section of fence than it is on the southern end. So would that horizontality continue around just the same?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, we would carry that around.
sure.
I think there's about 50 feet of fence on that side.
Mhm.
So just to summarize what I've heard is that you'd like us to take a look at perhaps shifting the landscaping areas to fit within the lighting a little bit better, if it's possible to do that. Take a look at designing it in a way to have murals potentially on the 2 inner spots and leave wood on the outer areas, and look into the possibility of kind of articulating the top of the fence, the height along the way, to see if there's areas that should pop up a little further, areas that are indented. Those are the takeaways I've had so far. Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think so.
And so I think what we would like to do is, because this is very, very helpful to us, I think what we'd like to do is take the time to go ahead and evaluate those changes, see what can be done with, as Rick said, just looking at everything Rick needs to look at to make sure that this is done correctly, and that we aren't promising something with the fence that then turns out to be
Sure.
structurally not feasible. We'd like to take the time to do that, and perhaps come back to you and show you the final design and then resubmit, if that makes sense to you. I know that would mean we would not be able to get in for the April 5th meeting. We'd have to postpone. We are okay with doing that because at this point we want to get it right rather than just try to make it an agenda date.
I think that's good. I mean, I think, there's so much public concern. So I think any effort that you make to really kind of address that is going to be very beneficial and help you all in the long run.
And you're really improving the public realm of things, I mean, that's the thing. It's a contribution.
Yeah.
to the public
I think it's made great strides from what was initially submitted.
And if I may, so as you're evaluating these changes, I'm less concerned that every panel is the same dimension. Like it doesn't have to be A, B, A, B, A. You could have B, B, A,
Right.
B, to get it to
Yes.
work, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't think that, that the regularity of the dimension is what's important.
Well, and the same goes for the planting. Like if you needed to adjust the planning in order to achieve
Yeah, I think so.
more, don't need to. There
Yeah,
doesn't.
I mean, it's a huge length. So you have a lot of ability to really, create a variety of different experiences within it, and not really have to really go overboard or really extend yourself.
And as much as I do like the wood on the corners, I think if we try and limit as much of the just plain wood, there's the plain wood behind the plantings, which is fine, but that other treatment, the horizontal treatment on the corners is fine, but maybe just limit that as much as we can and put as much room for murals. I think that is probably more engaging for the public, right? Do you get what I'm saying? Anybody?
I'm not sure. Are you talking about the spacing aspect of it?
Yeah, when we're talking about varying the widths of the sections, if you will, the planting section, the mural section, and the straight slat wood section, that preference more for the murals over the wood slats.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Got it.
Someone understands you, Mike.
I'm glad someone does. I'm not so sure anymore anyone does.
Okay. So our plan will then be to take the comments that we've heard today to review what can be done and try and incorporate what we can, and submit as we did back to Irina, so that they can be posted on the website and distributed to all of you, and to find a date. I guess at this point it would be in April. I can't believe March has gone by already, but I guess in April to come back before you. The reason I'm saying we won't be able to make the 5th is because we would have to have refiled plans by next Friday. And I'm not sure that we'd be able to get back in front of you before next Friday and then have time to refile the plans with the board in advance of that meeting. So we will do our best to get this back to you as quickly as we can, and then reach out to you for dates for the next meeting. And then if we could ask Irina for the application on the 5th to be carried to another date, perhaps in May. But we can discuss, an appropriate date depending on the board's agenda after you have the ability to speak with, I guess, the chairwoman and whoever else you need to speak with about agendizing.
And Jen, you had mentioned that you are willing to renotice for the next regular planning board meeting, correct?
We will renotice for the next, whichever meeting this is ultimately on, we will do public notice again. Yes.
Okay, great. And then to the members of the public in attendance right now, again, as with this meeting, everything will be posted online. There will be a public notice for the next DRC or Design Review Committee informal meeting, in addition to being renoticed for the regular planning board meeting for the beach club application.
And the DRC meeting, that one is just, it's on your website before
Yes.
the meeting, whereas my notice for the next hearing will be a mailed notice at least 10 days in advance of the hearing date.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, everyone, if no one else has any other comments or questions, I think.
I just want to thank the applicant. Thank you all. And thank you for getting it right. And thank you for your flexibility in meeting with us.
And thank you everyone
All
for
right.
all your feedback. We do appreciate it.
Yes, thank you.
Great, thank you very
Yeah.
much, everyone, and we'll see you at the next DRC meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks. Take care.
Thank
Good night,
you.
everyone.